Welcome back to the Bronco Garage. I'm Monster Mike, and today we've got Jon Melton from Nashville Early Broncos here. Jon, what are you doing here?
I brought my Bronco. The thing that I want to find out is, can I get a better ride quality by just changing the radius arms?
Okay.
Not changing anything else. Can I get more articulation, and my tires will rub on my radius arm because they're 35s. So like, that's a big tire to be stuffing under here.
Yeah.
T-Rex arm install right now.
First off, we want to make sure we lay out all the parts and verify they're there. Okay, now you're going to disconnect everything from the front axle before you droop it down and let it be hang freely.
So as Michael removes the drive shaft, the other things we're going to be removing is the axle breather, this whole thing that goes to the axle, but it's also the junction for your brake lines. We're going to remove the track bar from the frame. We're going to remove the drag link from the pitman arm and let that hang, and the steering stabilizer. And finally, we're going to remove the coil retainers right here. There's 2 screws under here, and it's just kind of hard to see everything under here because it's all black and grimy and dirty.
Right now we've got the C-caps removed, and we've got the nuts off of the end of the radius arms that hold it to the frame. What we need to do is move this axle forward just a few inches, and it'll actually just break free of the arm, and then we can start removing the bushing on the end of the arm at the same time. You got everything tore down, and it's about time to put stuff back together, but before you do that, you want to make sure that you prep and paint. Also, just keep in mind your axle is almost out at this point, so if it's pretty grungy, this would be a great time to disconnect your brake lines, slide it out, blast it with pressure washer, paint it. Do the same with your track bar, your drag link, and your tie rod. And you've also got your 2-piece lower coil retainers. These guys here, this is a good time to inspect them, make sure they're not all rusted out. If they aren't, you can blast them down and paint them. I would highly recommend you just go ahead and swap them out for the James Duff HD lower coil retainers. Really nice piece. I would probably call this the #1 most important job of putting these arms on, is making sure that you get the C bushings in correctly. So what you're gonna see, and it's hard to show this on the camera, but there is a front bottom and there is a rear bottom, okay? So front bottom, if that's front bottom, then it has to go towards the bottom when you install it on the axle. Well, what I do, so I don't confuse myself, is I use a paint pen. If this is front bottom, I'm actually gonna draw an arrow right here, and I'm gonna put driver F, D, F. So when I put this on, I clearly see that it's going in correctly, and I'm not second guessing myself later on when I've got this all together. Before you can install the C bushings, you have to make sure that this head unit is prepped and ready to be installed too, because the moment that the C bushings are all coated with grease, it's time to put this on. You don't want to do that until you put the head unit bushings in first. These 2 big holes here, we got to throw head unit bushings in. Now we've got the head unit bushings and sleeves installed to the head unit, and it's time to put some anti-seize on the hardware that's going to attach this to your C-cap. Now, you don't need a lot of anti-seize, just a little bit on the threads will go a long ways. Starter bolts, very important. You got to use these in order to get the head unit and C-cap to actually come together enough to where you can use the actual bolts that clamp the C bushing together. So I'm about to install these, and I'm going to add some grease to them. You can use lithium or red and tacky like I'm using. Just make sure that you coat the bushing and you coat the axle where it's installing, as well as the C-cap and the head unit. All that stuff has to get coated with grease. When you're using these starter bolts, you don't want to tighten them, you don't want to over tighten them. What you don't want to do is get them so tight to where the shoulder here starts trying to thread into the head unit.
As Michael was actually putting on the bolt for the radius arm, the T-Rex arm, the brake line bracket was in the way of the bolt, and so he just grabbed a crescent wrench and just kind of bent it up a little bit.
All right, so we've got these arms pitched down, and you can actually see I can put my finger underneath this one, but the other one is touching the ground. This is where we're going to start dialing these arms to where they're both touching the ground at the same time. Once the C-caps and the head units are completely together and the arms are touching the ground at the same time, you've eliminated Bronco lean.
So you want to tighten these down to about 90 to 110 foot-pounds, making sure that they stay level. Now, as you can see, we have got these level with the ground, and if you watch our Bronco lean video, you know that that is the most important part to alleviate any Bronco lean. So now what we got to do is we have to put the radius arms back through that hole right there on both sides. And then we start putting everything back together. The important thing is 90 to 110 foot-pounds, and then on the frame end nut, just make sure that it's about 90 to 110 foot-pounds as well.
We had to loosen the two main bolts that hold the arm to the head unit. Once we did that, we were able to make these arms move in a sideways fashion, so we could get them into those two holes that are in the frame brackets.
So we actually used the jack to raise this so that the radius arm is level, so when it's going through the hole, it's not going at an angle. This doesn't have the washer on it right now, because you kind of got to suck the radius arm through the frame hole, and then we'll loosen this back up and put the washer on here and the nut back on there.
Okay, so the install is done, and oh my god,
This is amazing, dude.
yeah, the measurements,
So yeah, it's like, it's pretty incredible with the T-Rex arms. We were at like 13 inches of droop, which was like an inch more than what we had. And then the articulation, we're at like 6 more inches of flex when we, obviously we know this isn't like the official way to test it, but like just testing how high, how low, like that kind of stuff. We got 6 more inches out of the T-Rex arms.
John, I don't even know if we're done.
Right. It's literally pressing up against my fender right here because I got the 35-inch tires, and so I got to cut that. But we could probably get another inch and a half. Like
That's
my
amazing.
shock's not done, all that. With that said, just keep in mind that if you're doing this, you may not get 6 inches. Your springs might be holding you back. Your tie rod, your drag link, like there's so many factors that can hold you back from getting more articulation. Not just your radius arms. Now your radius arms are the perfect place to start. And these T-Rex arms have proven to us that...
Thanks everyone for joining us. Make sure you subscribe and definitely leave a comment below. We want to see what you guys think about how we did this install.
Yeah, that's awesome. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks.